One. And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am Ubisoft concept artist Vin Hill. I am joined as ever by the indie developer, Mr. Christopher Jarvis.
Hello.
So, this week, there's a lot of tidbits. It's coming towards the end of the year, so there's a lot less to talk about, but there's still some little bits that we want to get through because there's always something to talk about in the games industry.
Yeah.
Always. Even on the quote unquote quiet weeks, there's always stuff to talk about these days, which is great.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. This is a quiet week because if COVID wasn't happening, we'd be talking about all these massive AAA games. But this is the time that they were expecting those ones to sell, isn't it? So
yeah, this is true. But before we do get into our little bits, I guess it's going to be a bit similar to last week. But Chris, what have you been playing this week, my man?
Well, I just finished off with the lad today, Lego Batman 2.
Nice.
Which is a great game. Such a good game. Like, Lego Batman 2 came out a long time ago now, but they really know game design really well. And a lot of it still stacks up on the Xbox and still plays really well. So I've been playing that. I've been playing Halo, obviously. But we talked about this.
Yeah,
I lost my save. Yeah.
Devastating.
It kept saying save failed when I was hitting checkpoints, and I was like, I was using the instant resume on the Xbox,
right,
Series X, and I just thought, oh, it's fine. It's just because instant resume is working. But no, it wasn't, and I lost several hours, like a whole massive play session. So
it's really strange. I have not heard of this bug at all. Like, it's kind of weird that like the game's just not saving it. I wonder if that's just a thing to Halo, or if it's like an actual like Xbox sort of system error. Like that. I'd be curious to see.
Yeah, I'll have to wait and see if I can save again moving forward, if I properly report it. Because if that's so, then that's the second odd, unusual, out of the ordinary bug that I've had on my Series X. So hopefully, it can't be hardware, can it?
No, it can't be hardware. It's got to be something. No. Yeah, it's just got to be something like to do with software. I assume like it's just not communicating properly with the game for whatever reason. It still sucks, though, man. That's brutal.
Yeah, it sucks. I got to play more Halo. So after this, that's what I'll be doing. So
yeah, I suppose that is the bright side to all of this, is that you get to sit down and play some more Halo, which is cool. But yeah, it still sucks.
And then I was playing one other thing.
Okay.
But we'll talk about what you've been playing first, and then we'll come back to the other thing I've been playing.
Yeah, I guess because it lines up exactly what you've just been saying. But I actually finished off Halo Infinite last night. Like I just finished moving. This is why, like, for any of the returning viewers could see, like, the background's changed.
The background's changed.
Yeah, because I moved house and now I don't have any crazy, screamy, like, insane people living below me anymore. Which is, yeah, it's been nice. It's been really nice, and the new apartment is amazing. It's great, but yeah, I digress. But last night I finally, like, after we finished packing on Friday, like, I finally sat down Saturday night last night, and I just spent like the last. I finished it off over like a 6-hour period. I just sat down and plowed through it. Great game, like really, really enjoyed it. I think like the only sort of criticism I've got, two like nitpicks. Like I do think it's worthy of like the 8s and 9s that it's getting. Because it's probably the best Halo game that 343 Industries have put out. I think they finally found like the formula which they're going to fit into, which is great because they always needed something that was sort of separate from the other Halo games, but something that was unique to them, but still felt like Halo. And that is a really hard combination to sort of find.
Yeah, tight line to tread. Yeah.
Which I can't even imagine like trying to sort of maneuver that as a developer to try and think, okay, we've got to match to this legacy, but also like find our own feet in this. And I think they've figured it out. Like I really enjoyed Halo 4, which they did. Halo 5 was just a mess, but this one is like, it feels new, it feels fresh, and it feels right for where Halo's going. The only sort of nitpicks which I had was, one was a comical bug which keeps happening over and over again, and everyone like that's even remotely interested in Halo has probably seen the comical bug, which is like the Marines are just very, very suicidal at the FOBs.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, you're dropping in a vehicle, cool.
You
Let me
jump
just
in a vehicle. Let's jump in on
right.
that. Yeah.
Let's like literally like run over to the spot exactly where you're about to drop something in on, and stand there with my sniper rifle, like, okay, it's nice knowing you, sort of thing. And then it lands and it just crushes them.
Yeah.
It's just, and it is funny. Like, that's one of the funny ones. But the Marines like felt a bit rushed for that game. That's the only thing, and it goes for all of it.
I agree.
So and not just the FOB stuff. I think like the way that they work in the field and stuff it's very rough. Like their run cycles and stuff just look really bad. They look like PS2 characters. Not like graphically, but like their animations are just like comically terrible. Like the way that they run, just like from the waist down, like there's no momentum in the upper body whatsoever. It's just like the legs are running, and then like the body is like perfectly still. Like it's kind of funny when you first see it, but after a while, it's kind of like, yeah, I wish I was a bit more polished. The only other criticism, the only other criticism I really had was the biomes, like on the Halo sort of like environment of the open world. It's all just one massive terrain basically, and it all looks the same. It's a beautiful game, and it's still like it's got a little bit of variation, but it doesn't have like weather biomes. Like it doesn't have like a snowy area and a hot area and a cold area or whatever, like they don't have like any variation whatsoever. So I'm hoping like in the next one they add a bit more of that, because that was the other thing. Like by the end it was like, I'm kind of sick of looking at these pine trees. So that's the other thing.
That could have worked as well, because where there was the damage done on that Halo ring, there was a perfect opportunity to have like some sort of environmental thing that might not have been working properly. So they had
ironically, it would have made more sense in this game over any other. It's like, because when you're playing Ghost of Tsushima, like you can like literally look from the top of a mountain and you can see in the distance and see,
snow and then
snow,
leaves,
and then it's like autumn's over there, and then the summer one's over there, and you can see all of them. It's like, this is like completely unrealistic. But in a Halo Infinite universe where like it's a manufactured environment, literally. You could have said, well, like in this area because it's busted, and like the Halo ring is overcompensating for certain areas, so it's like the climate's all over the place on this bit. Like where they could have like played with that, it just stayed all the way through, which I'm guessing this game is probably rushed towards the end anyway, because they had a lot of pressure based on like the feedback that they got from the first showing, so they probably cut back on a lot of them features. Probably had plans for it, but like sort of pull back on it, which I'm glad they did, because the game itself, outside of those problems which I had, feels great. Like it's a really, really good Halo game.
Well, DLC, could that be something on the horizon?
I think so. Like, I mean, if there's any sort of I don't know, like argument to have for a DLC, I think like this game sort of fits into it. It's a first party game, so it's probably gonna get like a story expansion, which would be nice.
I'd like that.
Yeah, like just playing as another Spartan, maybe, like because there's obviously like other like backstory. I'm not going to ruin anything, but there's other like Spartans that show up, quote unquote, in the game itself that you could totally expand upon in some way. Like there's this whole like the sort of 6 months leading up to Halo Infinite.
Yeah, plenty of story there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a prequel DLC. I think that could be really interesting. While Master Chief has been like floating around in orbit, wherever he's been doing, having a nice nap, like all this other stuff was happening, which you only get like bits of like throughout the story, which is, I think you could totally expand upon it. So hopefully they do.
The invasion.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I can't wait to play some more in just a little while. But yeah, have you been playing anything else, or was that it?
No, that was it. I mean, because I was moving all last week, and then I only just sat down yesterday, and I'm glad I was able to get through Halo, because I've got a load of other stuff that I want to finish before next year.
Mass
Because
Effect 2.
I'll get around to it one day. One day I'll get to it. I promise. I will get to it.
Yeah, next game. Yeah, it's gonna be your next game.
Maybe.
Right?
We'll see. I mean, I've got like
you finished Halo, Finn.
Yeah, it was funny. I had this moment the other day. Well, not the other day. It was a couple of weeks ago. I downloaded Mafia 2. I haven't played it yet, but I was looking at it. I was like, if I play this before Mass Effect 2, I think Chris might actually fly to Canada and kill me. So I better put this one to one side. Now the next game I want to finish off is Solar Ash. Like I put a good dent into that, but I still haven't finished it off, and I want to get back to that game because that's a really, really great game. I'm really enjoying it. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Cool.
when we come back, we can probably talk about our games of the year, which will be an interesting conversation to have. But
Yeah,
I'd like to do that in the new year, though. Like, I never like doing that before the year is over because
Yeah.
it always feels
There's
weird.
still plenty of gaming time. Well, I get a lot of gaming done in the holidays, so
There's that as well. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Game of the Year nominations which were in the Game Awards, which I had a good rant about last week. Like, if anyone wants to go back and listen to that, like, I am not a fan of the Game Awards, but like the actual nominations, there was the majority of them I haven't actually played, so it was kind of
same.
Yeah. I want to chip through. Like, I really want to play the winner, which is
Deathloop?
Takes Two. I do want to play Deathloop at some point, but I have a feeling that's going to come to Game Pass at some point, and like dropping money on that when I know it's going to become free eventually is kind of that's the beauty of Game Pass, right? Or the detriment of it, like depending on your perspective. But I do want to play It Takes Two with. I actually want to play that with Rachel because that would be really that'd be a great game.
That does sound good. Yeah, I'd like to get your input on that, and that'd be interesting to see. Because I've heard the only reviews I've heard is from couples playing it.
Right.
So it seems like a proper good like couples game. So I won't be playing that then.
You could play it with your boy. Like, he might enjoy it.
You might enjoy it, yeah.
You probably won't get like the story or anything because I know it's about like a married couple or something that are going through like hard times. I think that's what the story was, and it's about them like figuring like re-finding their like re-sparking their love for each other or whatever.
Maybe I needed to play that 2 years ago then. Gosh. Thanks, It Takes Two. It's coming out late.
That's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, that's one I do want to play. But I do want to eventually get around to Psychonauts 2 as well, because I know a couple of people that worked on that game, and it looks really interesting. And I think Tim Schafer needs like all the love he can get, because that guy's mind is just messed up in all the right ways. So we need more games like that.
Yeah, that's on my backlog for sure.
Yeah.
But what I did play, although you can't really, I guess it is technically playing it, but it didn't feel like a play. It felt more like work or an exercise, or it was the Matrix Unreal. What's it called? The Matrix
Awakens.
An Unreal 5 engine experience.
Right.
It was an Unreal Engine 5 experience with a dash of Matrix. Let's put it that way.
It's a tech demo, right? Like that's the impression that I got of it.
Demo.
Right.
Yeah. It's a tech demo with like a 5-minute bit where there's some quick time events.
Yeah.
And that's the Matrix bit done. And then apart from that, it's got like the Matrix soundtrack playing when you're in the city. It's like a tech demo where you're in a city, basically.
Can you, like, how involved is this? Is it literally just like a tech demo that you sit back and watch, or is it like how much gameplay is actually involved in this demo?
So I was unsure of this as well, and the marketing didn't really make it very clear. So at first you watch like a little Matrix-y video, then it goes into Matrix-y QuickTime event, then it goes into you are a Matrix character, but you're just walking around a city and you can drive around, and it's just a tech demo, and then however long you spend in that city, that's the majority of your time. And I spent a lot of time in there and had a look, and I had a good explorer and had a look at the different features and things. And so for me, it was like 10% Matrix and then like 90% exploring what the tech can do and exploring the city and seeing what Unreal Engine 5 can actually do and what it's capable of. I understand that they're selling a movie and there's money gone from the movie people to Unreal Engine 5, and Unreal Engine 5 want to show their tech demo, and it's how to marry that up. The QuickTime event was just slapdash, just put together. It was it's a QuickTime event. Doesn't belong in 2021.
Yeah.
But the actual
that is a hot take.
City, the actual the actual tech demo itself of Unreal Engine 5 and driving around and having a look in the windows, it was like one of those, this is what games are going to look like in the future sort of experiences. And it really did look like there's some new interesting things that are being shown off. So when you're walking around the city, you can actually toggle all the different features. Well, not all of them, but a lot of the different features that Unreal Engine 5 are sort of showing off.
Right.
So you can, the cars can just suddenly change to blobs to show you what their AI is doing, because they've got a real world traffic AI, and the blobs are all different colors and they're all doing different things. So that's quite interesting. And then you've got all these new things that they're showing off, which I can razz through now.
Yeah.
So we've got world partition, which is automatic open world streaming. So world partition automatically divides large maps into grids and streams the necessary cells, making it easier to build merge massive open worlds like the city you can see in the demo.
Yeah,
so
we kind of do
video,
that,
didn't we?
Yeah, we kind of do that manually anyway. Like in terms of like in games development, like most of the games I've worked on have actually been open world games. So like we refer to them as cells like all the time. And how it normally works, like you don't load like the entire world map of a game, because that would be insane, like in terms of memory consumption on a console. It would just tank it instantly. It just wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to basically cut it up into chunks, and then as you load in, like as you're crossing a threshold of one cell into another, like so you've got 2 cells loaded up, and then the second that you move into the next one, then it unloads the other
last
cell.
one.
So you've only got like small sections of an open world, like sort of loaded into memory at any one time. So this is sort of, I guess, like they've figured out a way that you can just make the entire map and it'll partition it up for you automatically, which is a huge time saver. Like that's awesome. Like that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll still be people out there that want custom cells anyway, depending on what game you're sort of making. But like for a city, like it absolutely makes sense to have an automated partition of cells up. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah. So what it meant was you could be it was a really detailed city, and the resolution was really high, the detail was insane, and what it meant was you could fly really fast in the city, like in camera mode, like you could be flying along, and it was really crisp. There was motion blur, but you could see for a long way as well.
Right. So
I'm thinking that's what was happening there. We've got Nanite, which is virtual micro polygon geometry.
Yeah, I've played around with this already.
Yeah, renders vast city environments at unprecedented level of detail, from buildings with intricacy, carved moldings and reliefs, to chainlink fences.
What that basically means is that you can show a hell of a lot of polygons on screen at any one time now, and it sort of compresses it in real time. So this is the biggest thing that's going to hit the games industry more than anything is Nanite. Like a lot of people are focusing on Lumen, which is like the lighting engine, which you're probably going to mention in a minute. But Nanite is like by far like the biggest sort of, it's going to shift the industry like big time. Like, and a lot of people don't, like a lot of gamers like don't really realize that yet, because like the way that the pipelines are sort of set up, how you have to, I mean, you'll know this, Chris, but how the pipeline actually is, if you're making like a prop or like a character at the moment, you sculpt it in something called like ZBrush or something like that, where you like, it's really high density model and it's got millions upon millions of polygons. And then you do a process, what we call baking, which is like you bake it down to a much simpler model, and then that's what makes it into the game engine. And that can take all like the cool detail that you've got and apply it to like a texture map instead of actually being proper geometry. And then when you bake it down, then you can actually use it. But that whole process of like baking down is like a good 50% of the work for 3D artists constantly working with that sort of stuff. What Nanite does is basically removes the need to bake anything, which is insane. It's like mind-blowing. Like
to just do high poly mesh
straight into the engine
as well. Artists like doing the high poly stuff. Like the low poly stuff is just I mean, some people get crazy. Sick, twisted enjoyment out of like, how do you expertly make a low poly version of a high poly mesh?
Yeah, I mean, then people are psychopaths, to be fair. Let's be honest. They're insane. It's the same people that like UV unwrapping. It's like, who are you and why do you exist?
I kind of do like that sometimes.
See, you're a part of the problem.
I'm one of them.
You're one of those weirdos. But yeah, I mean, Nanite just like being able to take raw sculptures. I mean, it's not going to be like that straight away. It's not like everyone's just going to completely remove bacon from the pipeline.
No more bacon, no more low poly.
It's not going to happen. But by the end of this generation, I think we might be there, and definitely next gen, which is crazy. Because what Nanite does basically, it just takes your raw sculpt or your raw like geometry, and then it sort of in real time it sort of transfers it down, and then as you get closer to it, like the more geometry sort of pops in. And it sort of works like what we call levels of detail. Sorry to like probably losing gamers at this point. Like, what the hell are these guys even talking about? Like, the level of detail like sort of decreases the further away you get on the fly.
It's like a distance threshold, which changes how much detail is visible on the screen at any one time.
So basically, like, to put this in layman's terms, is just it cuts out a whole section of production pipeline sort of stuff, which no longer needs to be done, which is amazing. Like, so this basically means spending more time on making games, more time on making cool stuff. This actually saves us a bunch of time in development. I mean, it's still probably like 5 years off before we fully utilize this into our pipelines. It can
be properly rolled out to save time and money, because there's implementation time and cost. So
and we're still probably going to be baking stuff in and stuff for a while. Like, I think that pipeline's still efficient for most other engines, and we can't just like completely switch to Unreal for every single thing that we're doing, especially like companies that have proprietary engines like Ubisoft, like Activision, places like this. So it's not going to be overnight, but I think over time this technology is a massive step forward for the industry. It's huge. It's absolutely insane. But it's great news though.
And the fact that they're advertising this in a tech demo means it's like, this is for devs. It's not really for gamers. I mean, gamers can be impressed by it and to show where it's going. But this was like choose Unreal Engine 5 for your next project, devs. Yeah, that's what it was.
Or steal all of our features, because that's actually what's going to happen. But
well, in that respect, it's kind of cool that they're doing it. Then, like, they're showing it, like they're putting it there for everyone to see, which is great.
Without doubt.
You mentioned Lumen, which is right. Yeah, dynamic global illumination and reflections. So Lumen simulates light bouncing off all surfaces dynamically, providing incredibly realistic multi-bounce, indirect lighting, skylighting, reflections in a huge open world. So this was it was an outside city, so there was no internal areas, but you did have like underground, like where you have a bit like Spaghetti Junction, where you had the overpasses with the traffic, and so you could tell that it was getting darker in and around those areas. So that was kind of cool. Chaos physics and destruction system, high performance physics system. There's not really much to say about that.
It's physics. People saw that stuff bounces, like this. It just means that you can do more physics simulations at once now. That's basically what it means. But
I didn't see anything on the demo that was blew me away, to be honest. There was explosions and stuff, but I was just like,
cool.
If it's more efficient, cool. It didn't look any more impressive. Houdini integration, so procedurally generated open worlds. The city in the experience is procedurally generated, combining the power of Houdini and Unreal Engine 5, which enables teams to work at speed and scale significantly, reducing the number of people needed to create a large open world. So that was kind of impressive, and it looked like everything had its own story. It looked like this shop here had this is a little shop, that's a little bakery, that's a little whatever. Sometimes you had a building that looked like a bank, and then you looked in the windows and it had like the interior from like a supermarket, and it was like, okay. And it wasn't perfect, like there was things popping and stuff like that, but if you're sat there paying attention to the city, you're not playing a video game. So all this stuff would just get brushed past. If I'm like Spider-Man, for example, swinging, trying to swing after a car, I wouldn't stop and look at if the name of the shop matched the interior.
I mean, this is the big sort of question internally for development studios anyway, for like AAA studios, is like, now that we're getting to the point where you can pretty much make anything and do anything in a game engine, we've got really no restrictions anymore. And like that brings in another question of like, okay, if you've got no restrictions, like how much work can you like do, sort of
get
thing.
Away with and still sell it.
Because at the end of the day, like, it still takes time and ultimately money, like, because it takes time to build this stuff out and put it into an engine. So like, how far is too much detail, sort of thing. So you've got to like, there's got to be ways to mitigate this, and I think this is where like like photoreal scanning and stuff like that is really going to come into play over the next generation, which people are probably going to have their own problems with, but for developers, like, it's a huge sort of step forward. Like, the fact that if we're making a realistic game, like being able to photo scan stuff, like being able to go into New York City and just scan in a bakery and then just changing one sign, throwing it into engine, like, we should, like, gamers need to start accepting this as okay, because like it's gonna save us time and money and effort, and like ultimately it's gonna make your games look better and you're gonna get them quicker. So like hopefully like people sort of preemptively like realize that the level of detail that we've got in these games are only gonna get more and more, but like we're gonna have to start drawing them more and more from like real world, otherwise it's just going to become detrimental to production almost. So it's a huge conversation that we're having internally, but it'll be interesting to see like how the industry sort of adapts to that problem.
I was thinking about this as I was playing it, because I knew it was procedurally generated and there was a little quick time event, and then there was no video game per se. There wasn't like missions or anything you had to do. You were just wandering
Matrix
around. Bit finished, you were wandering, and I was thinking there's going to be a real emphasis on design. So it's going to be like mission design and like where your base is or where you go and how you go about doing missions. There'll be a huge emphasis on design. So the city can look as amazing as possible, but it's still not going to be a fun experience if like you keep getting lost, or if the flow of the level doesn't work, or if there's a weird building in the way that's stopping gameplay, like if it's a fighting game.
Yep.
And if you've got a driving mission, if the layout of the city just isn't fun to drive in, then that's not going to be great. That's why I think some of the GTA games are great, because the layout of the city is all painstakingly thought out and it's really fun to drive through, and it's diverse and it changes and it's not all the same. If you're getting a procedurally generated city, you've got to make sure you're planning all that out. Because one of the things I did notice was that I was flying around and I noticed there was lots of off ramps on the roads, but there was hardly any on ramps. And me being me, I was like, if there are some people commuting in these skyscrapers, they're going to have to get off like way further back or way further on. They won't be able to go anywhere that they need to get to if they want to get to here. So there's like but people getting on are going to have an easy time, but there's no off ramps. So you got all that sort of stuff, like weird city planning stuff. But that relates to games design, because if you want to play a game and you've got to go down an off ramp, it's not going to feel as. There's that, how real does it feel? How fake is it? In GTA, for example, there was equal numbers of off ramps and on ramps, and you could stick on the correct side of the road driving during a mission, and that would help you because you'd be going with the flow of traffic. So there's little things like that.
I'm laughing about this because like this is a very real problem which we have like at Ubisoft, I guess. Like when we were working on Watch Dogs Legion, there was a constant conversation about how condensed should we make London, and like what changes should we make to London, like in the road layouts and stuff. And it's really fascinating, like because like some of the roads are just because they're all designed by Romans and stuff, and they're all like all over the place, and they make ring roads and stuff like that just don't go to anywhere other than like one random little shop. And like, yeah, you remove those sort of things, and how streamlined you make it, and the ultimate reality is like you've got to get to the point where you make a recognizable place, but still is functional to gamers to the point that it's not annoying. And and there's a really great video of a London cab driver, like a cabbie, like that drives around in Watch Dogs Legion, and because he knows like London off the back of his hand sort of thing, and he knows exactly where he is constantly. It was really fascinating to watch him like drive through the streets, like, oh yeah, I know exactly where I am. I'm on Piccadilly. I'm gonna go like left here. Like, okay, yeah, I know where I'm going. And he was just driving around without the minimap, and he knew exactly where he was going. But then he'd hit somewhere where it's like, that's not there in real life. And then it's like, but that does make like I can actually get there quicker. So this actually is more efficient and stuff. And it was really interesting to see his perspective, because like he has to constantly like take these weird side roads and think about like how to actually get from A to B. But then we just like in the game, we just like cut the road straight through and made it easier. And he was like, oh yeah, this is way easier to get to and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, this is crazy. But it's really, really interesting, like sort of conversation about that. Like the whole, there's definitely a point where you can be too realistic to the point that it's annoying to a player. I mean, it might look amazing, but people don't want reality.
They keep asking for it, but gamers don't want reality. They want hyper reality. They want condensed user experiences. They want it to be easier than reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I think the future's going with this. Like there'll be more emphasis on design. So like we're getting to that point where photorealistic is coming up and procedure generated cities, and it's going to look amazing. But really need to nail that design, and which is good, which is great. Which,
Oh yeah,
which
it's exciting as
hell. The tools are becoming more streamlined, and we can focus more on the art side of it, which is great.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to that. Where do we get to? Mass framework, so crowd and traffic systems. So yeah, I mentioned that mass in Unreal Engine's high performing solution to populate large worlds with vast amounts of simulators.
Yeah, it's basically. Have you ever heard of? If anyone's watched like the special features to like Lord of the Rings or whatever, they have a software program called Massive, which is each individual sort of element can just be spawned anywhere in the map, and they have their own brains basically that sort of wander around. They know not to walk into each other, and they know how to stick to the paths and things like that, and they don't like cross the road. Or so they've got their own AI, but it's all like they're all individual like agents that aren't interacting with every single other thing. They're only interacting with things like in their own little bubbles, and it's sort of, I guess it's like an expansion of that sort of system, which is in game engines super exciting. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah, and the people were all sticking to the paths like you would think, and and the traffic flowed with no crazy problems. So that all worked really well.
Awesome.
And we've got Niagara particle system.
Pretty particles, pretty fire effects.
Pretty particles. Right. Doesn't see, it's just mumbo jumbo. Nothing there that's out of the ordinary. Meta humans, next generation. Oh, I just hate the word meta. Like meta now, using anything.
Facebook has killed it. Yeah.
Meta humans, next generation digital humans. So populated by thousands of next generation digital humans, which have been built using Meta Human Creator. So this could be one of those, hit refresh until you get someone new sort of jobbies.
Yeah, it's basically it's basically a character creator for Unreal Engine. Like, I've had to play around with it. It's super interesting, but I think it's really going to explode when you get people making packs for, like you can like buy like different styled faces, like so you can get like a Ghibli character pack sort of thing, and then make all the characters look like Ghibli characters, and you just like move the sliders, their head gets bigger, their eyes go up and down, all that sort of stuff, change their eye color and all that. It's basically that, but on steroids. Like, it's, you can get really noodly with it and really get into fine detail, which is really cool. But like, I do have the fear, like everyone else, is that all the characters are going to start to look a little bit samey, but hopefully like a stylized sort of presets start coming out where like you can, like a studio can make their own sort of style character, and then they just plug it into MetaHuman, and then they can go through all the sliders, and it looks completely different to other people's MetaHumans.
So the other, because you don't want studios to start all looking like that.
I mean, that's the only thing. But other than that, it's crazy cool technology. Like, it's really nice to see like the next generation of game engines. Absolutely.
Yep. Metasounds, procedural audio generation. So yeah, that's like assigning sounds to different bits, and that did work really well when you're going up and down. Like the sound differently changed, like crowd sounds up close when you're near people, and then when you got higher, it sounded more like a city hustling and bustling in the background. That worked really well. So that was kind of cool. That was kind of eerie that the sound really matched where you were at any one time,
and that's dynamic sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, we've always had like for sort of look behind the curtain, like whenever you have a gunshot or something in a game, you sort of have like 3 different versions of a gunshot. Like you have like the close gunshot, the mid gunshot, and then the far gunshot. And like when it's far away, it sounds like a pop almost. It doesn't actually sound like a gunshot anymore. When you're close, obviously it's a lot louder and it's a bang sort of thing. So it's like we always have to make different versions. So it'll be interesting to see like how they develop that out, and if it can actually match. Like, if you hear a gunshot far away, will it sound like a pop? And will certain things like actually dynamically do that? That'd be really interesting to see. But that's cool.
Yeah, and then will they go down the like realistic route where guns firing off in the distance doesn't necessarily sound that dramatic? Are they going to go down the Hollywood route?
Yeah, like explosions in space sort of thing. It's like that whole conversation, I guess. Yeah, it is a really interesting conversation around that. I keep saying that expression, but they are like they're all really interesting conversations. But like the expectation of the viewer and the gamer versus reality is a constant thing you have to deal with. Like you think certain things sound a certain way, but in reality they don't sound like that at all. And you've got to sort of, you can't always go for reality. You have to actually present what the ignorant assumption is of like the viewer or the gamer constantly. So like it'll be interesting to see like how we handle that as an
especially with this
industry.
technology. With
Right.
if the tools make it easier to do one thing or another, or what sort of pops out.
If there's an override for it or something, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And what we've got here, Temporal Super Resolution, or TSR. It's a higher display resolution. So this was the cool thing where, you definitely could tell the difference between it was toggling off and on. Anti-aliasing solution, which helps vast amount of geometric detail to create super sharper, more stable images than higher before. So that's where you could like look down the street and then like everything was super crisp really far away.
Yeah.
It got to the point where that would then, while you're working with the level of detail, so where you're moving towards some buildings, if they had a certain like window pattern, or if they were certain, or like darker window patterns with a bit of grunge texture on them or whatever,
Right.
sometimes they would look a bit they would jump between certain things, and I think it was something to do with the temporal,
So it looked like
resolution.
It's popping in almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Or there was only,
It's just a shift.
this is me
Yeah.
scouring the city and really trying to look, just trying to figure out what it's actually doing and how it's working.
Yeah, I
It
guess
was
that's what it's
super
there for, though.
interesting.
I guess that's what the engine's
Yeah.
there for. That's what the demo is there for, is to like people so they can nitpick over it, and fascinating.
But so it was really interesting. So I definitely highly recommend it if you're like anyway inclined into game engines or game dev. Then I would totally check it out, because it's great for that. If you're not into Matrix, don't worry about it. It's like over in 5 minutes. And then you can get to the good stuff and like have a wander around in this amazing space. So that's like no other video game that exists. So it's a completely unique experience. So it's definitely something worth mentioning. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it. And
Absolutely.
it's interesting. When was the last time this sort of thing has happened by a big dev? Like, there's no Frostbite 2. Like,
I mean, there's
out.
always like tech demos every gen, but like very rarely are they playable. That's the thing that's sort of different. Like, they normally show stuff off. Like, I remember like one of the tech demos for the PS3. Like, they had two tech demos that really made waves. And that's the thing about these things as well. Like, they do make waves to the point that people actually want to play these things sometimes. So it's sort of good that they snubbed that out by actually making the tech demo playable in this one. But in the PS3, they had a Final Fantasy VII Remake tech demo, and that's what sparked the whole like Final Fantasy VII Remake conversation.
Right.
They showed like this what Final Fantasy VII would look like on the PlayStation 3, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, why don't you just make this more?" And then it just never ended. Like, they just kept hammering Square Enix until they finally submitted and actually made that game. And the next one was the tech demo, which eventually became Become Human, Detroit Become Human.
Right.
It was the tech demo for that, and that was on PS3, and that was like, it was this girl being constructed as a robot sort of thing, like as an android, like being prepared for packaging and sent off to whatever. And like, they're having a conversation with her, doing diagnostic sort of a test with her to sort of check it out. Amazing tech demo, and a really good like piece of storytelling as well, like within like a 5-minute period. Like, it's really interesting, and I totally understand why Quantic Dream eventually made that game. So it was absolutely fascinating. So they're always there, and they always make waves, and they always make a splash. But it's really cool to see them playable, because it's not just this is what games are gonna look like. This is like how they're actually going to look in game, and you can play with it and change stuff and like flick things on and off just to see like how it's actually working. You can really diagnose like how these things are actually working, which is, it's exciting as hell. It is really cool. We should definitely be doing this more often.
Yeah, the only things that were missing for me is that there was no, you could toggle on a day and a night cycle in like a little fly past. So there was a section where the camera was just flying through and you had no control over it, and it was telling you about all this stuff, and you could toggle it on and off.
Yeah.
And in the actual tech demo, you couldn't change it between night and day, but when you're flying over it, you could change it between night and day, and it had that. I would love to have. You can change the position of the sun, but there was no up or down, so it was just rotation. Like, the sun angle was rotating, and it would change the shadows in the city, and that was kind of crazy to see. But yeah, the only thing that was missing was like weather system and day-night cycle that I could have a look and play with. But what I got was absolutely fine, and the fact that nothing really like this has happened before shows that I'm
Exciting.
happy with it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of green tinted things,
Oh, nice segue.
well, you said nice segue, so you completely made it redundant, Chris. God damn it. Yeah, so there was an exciting announcement this week, which you wanted to talk about, which was the Splinter Cell remake. Finally came about. People have been asking for this for a while.
Yes.
You're a fan of the original game.
I was a fan of the original game. I remember playing it on the original Xbox with the original controller with the black and white buttons.
The Duke controller. Yeah.
Like, a testament to handheld design. It's probably up there in like design point of interest throughout history of holding things. I think. I remember playing that as a young lad, and I was just thinking, "Wow, this is so cool!" It was like looking at the light and looking at the shadows and using light and shadow in the gameplay and methodical, and it wasn't run and gun. It was, but the fact that this was the first time any of those things all came together all in one game, it was properly groundbreaking, and it was unique, and it was a watershed moment in gaming. And the whole stealth thing hadn't really been done up until then in a third person.
Yeah, I mean there was other stealth
there was
games.
elements of Metal Gear that
of
had
course.
stealth.
Yeah.
But not in the way that utilized light in the same way.
Yeah.
So their tagline was stealth action redefined, or was it? Is that what it was? Stealth something redefined.
Yeah, it's something like that. I remember.
Yeah, I think it really sort of stood up to that with this game, which was ballsy. But like half the time you're running around in shadow and you've just got a light on your back showing you where you're going. It's kind of like if you pitched that back in the day when there was nothing like that existed, you'd think, well, there's no market for it. How are we ever going to sell this thing? And I really love that game. And it was one of those games which was like, damn, I love gaming. Like, damn, this is what the industry can do. This is so unique and fresh. So yeah, I'm super psyched that they've announced it.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's like a lot of people have been asking for it, that's for sure. Christ, they haven't really shut up about it over the past year. So I think this is like the bone has been thrown at them. Like, all right, Christ, get off us,
Yes.
So.
I was going to say, you obviously can't really say too much because you work for Ubisoft.
Right.
But what my opinion of this is that Ubisoft didn't want to do anything with Splinter Cell. They saw the numbers, they weren't selling. And this is throwing a bone just because of the Twitter people, like throwing them a bone. Because the announcement trailer came out and there's nothing. It was just literally like, we've just started doing this. And here's the video for it.
It's early. It's very early.
It's so early that there's literally nothing to show. And it's a remake of the original Splinter Cell. And I don't know about you, but I remember watching it and thinking this was like the most next-gen thing I've ever seen. It looks so photorealistic. It's like real life. And then I'm watching back the video and I'm like, oh my God, it's not like that at all.
Yeah, nostalgia is a very, very powerful thing. That's the...
Yes.
I go through the same thing all the time as well. And... what you call it? There's like old like PS1 games, like people. Whenever you have a conversation about Tenchu, that's one on the PS1. Everyone's like, "Oh man, Tenchu is a great game, like stealth action. Like you could jump from rooftop to rooftop, and you're a ninja, and you can like jump down." But then if you have conversations with people that have played it within the last couple of years, sort of thing, like gone back and played the PS1 version of Tenchu.
Yeah.
God, that game is awful. Like it's really, really poor. Like just the way you control the characters and like what you actually do and all that sort of stuff. Like nostalgia is like leave it in the land of nostalgia, I say, sort of thing. But I mean, I hope that because this is done by Ubisoft Toronto, which did Watch Dogs Legion. They've done a couple of Assassin's Creed games as well. They've definitely got the expertise and the experience to do it. I'm really, really excited to see what they do with it because like it's a much beloved sort of franchise. But yeah, I can totally understand the perspective of like this is just to settle the Twitter people down. Like I can totally see that why people
I think it is
to
give them a bone, as it were, to like shut them up for once.
Yeah, I mean the weird thing is like I'm not really like a big Splinter Cell guy that much. Like I played it back in the day. But it was like, yeah, that was a fun game, and I just put it to the side and never really played them. And I think the majority of people are. That's probably why the numbers might have gone down, because they just like were chipping away through like every iteration. Blacklist apparently did really well, but yeah, for the most part, I don't think
Chaos, I did play Chaos Theory, and I remember it being okay. I remember noticeably feeling this doesn't feel the same as other Splinter Cell games.
Right.
It just, I couldn't pinpoint it at what it was. There was no criticism that I could find. It just didn't have the same feeling as I felt when I played the first ones. Could well have been just the fact that I wasn't like a teenager, like just hyped up on adrenaline and just going, oh my god, check out the graphics. Like, it could be something as simple as seeing what that console could do with lighting
back in like 2000, 2002, whenever it came out.
2002, was it? Yeah. Oh my gosh, that makes me feel really
It's a long time ago, man. I mean, it's almost 20 years old.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's bananas, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, this is the thing. Like, because they can make it look amazing and all that sort of stuff, AAA values and all that sort of stuff, that'd be great. But, like, how will they sort of update the gameplay and the level design?
Stand the test of time.
Right. Because level design 20 years ago was, notoriously bad for the most part, because we were still figuring stuff out. It was new, right? So
yeah, I mean, they had, and the limitations of the console as well. So you can have a good design, but it's got to fit within what the console's able to render at any one time. So you can't have a load of stuff. So with that being said, are they going to go around the reimagining route? Are they going to just retexture everything? Are they going to pull a GTA and get some bad press for it?
Yeah, I mean, GTA was a bit of a weird one because it was outsourced for the most part.
Yes,
outsourced to it.
We got Toronto doing this one, so hopefully there should be some.
So one of the major sort of Ubisoft studios are looking after this, and hopefully they take good care of it, because I think it deserves it, and fans apparently are asking for it. So yeah, we'll definitely see them.
Yeah, I think I'll pick this up, because it'll just be, even if it's just like the trip down memory lane sort of thing, with I remember, like, it's like walking into a room, because there'll be levels I know which had an impact on me, that I'll play them again and it would just be like, I've forgotten this until now, and that just has a release of endorphins at the same time. It's brilliant. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. So I'm happy that Twitter. No, I'm not really happy about the Twitter trolls, but
Twitter wins this round. Twitter wins this round. Yeah.
Twitter wins this round.
That's a good one.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, not much to talk about, even though this is on the thumbnail and the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Trip down memory lane. But there's not really much more to talk about, because it's just so early. And
there is one other thing that I want to mention, like in the line of Xbox anyway. I sat down over yesterday, like before I started playing Halo. Like, I woke up in the morning and I came across there's a documentary series put out by Xbox. I don't know if you've heard about this. It's called Power on Xbox, and it's basically about the history of Xbox and how it came about, like, as a project. And they are not short. There's like 6 episodes of it so far, I think. I'm not sure if it's like actually finished, because I haven't finished the series. But the 6 episodes so far, and they're like 40 minutes each. I blasted through 3 of these yesterday. Absolutely fascinating. I highly recommend everyone go and check it out, even if you're not an Xbox owner. But it gives you like a look behind the curtain of like how that thing came about, and it's kind of amazing. Like the stories that come out of like the boardrooms with Bill Gates and stuff, and like kind of how utterly clueless like Microsoft were about the games industry, and how like this very, very small team of guys figured this thing out to actually get it to market. And just like the trials and tribulations of like the Red Ring of Death on the 360 and things like that. Just like learning about all of that sort of stuff. Highly, highly recommend it. Like, people should go and check it out, even if you're not an Xbox owner, because it's gaming history, and it's really fascinating. I can't recommend it enough.
I think I've seen articles being advertised about behind the scenes of the Red Ring of Death, like they've explained how and why it happened, and I'm guessing it's a culmination of a few different bits and pieces which led to that happening. I got the Red Ring of Death back in the day. It was almost like a badge of honor by the end of it, especially because the shops were so good at they got used to being really good at getting replacements.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
So, that was in the UK at least. In any case, I'm not sure it was like abroad or anywhere else, but UK. But saying that, UK have got really good consumer laws, so
absolutely
sell 40 product and get away with it in the UK. So yeah.
Yeah, like absolutely fascinating documentary though so far. Like I'm really really enjoying it, and I hope that we get more of them from the other studios. It's a lot harder with things like Sony and stuff like that, obviously, because it's Japanese and trying to track all them developers down and think about it. But I would love to just like see that sort of stuff, because you always see like snippets of this in interviews and stuff. Like they sit Phil Spencer down like, hey, tell us about the history of Xbox, and it's very like one-sided, not like in a marketing sense or and like that, just like he only knows so much about it. But this documentary is really good because it tracks down all the core people that were actually a part of the project, and it gives their all sort of collective mindsets about what was going on, and just really really fascinating piece of history. And I hope like we get more of this, especially from Nintendo and PlayStation. It'll be really cool to see.
I'd love to see all that. That'd be really interesting, because there's good stories in those.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's some juicy info, and yeah. So that'd be good to see. I'm looking forward to that. What is that on? What platform?
It's on YouTube, and it's free. YouTube. Like you can watch it wherever you want. I think it's also on, like, if you power up your Xbox at some point, I'm sure like it's in a menu somewhere, so you can check it out. But absolutely fascinating. Like really really great little documentary series. Can't recommend it enough.
I'll check that out.
Speaking of stories, we have got.
Speaking of stories,
you've got one, right?
I've got a story. So yeah, I wanted to take a bit of time to give you my one of my anecdotes. I've got two, and this is one of my anecdotes. And I'll give you the reason behind I'm giving the anecdote. It's because recently it's come about via Twitter. So I'll give you the story.
Okay.
I'll start again. So it's not for no reason. It's not like this is something that happened like 10 years ago, but it's come about again because of Twitter. So imagine a fresh-faced me and Vin at uni together.
What are you talking about? Still am.
In Norwich. You are.
Yeah.
Norwich University of the Arts. And we're doing our degrees and dreaming about Assassin's Creed and all the different places and genres that Assassin's Creed could be set in. While Vin's making Assassin's Creed Japan, I picked up a copy of Imagine FX magazine from the newsagents from W.H. Smith's in Norwich.
Good times.
And because it was a Star Wars special, so there was a Star Wars special on there. So they had different articles all to do with Star Wars. So they had a 3D render of how to do a 3D model of Darth Vader and what shaders to use and how to render it and things like that.
Yeah.
And there was this article on an artist, Warren Fu, and he was a director by the end of the prequels, so the Star Wars prequels. I think he started as like a concept artist, and then he made his way up to like a director on the like an art director of sorts on the prequels. He's now a music video director, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the article about his work, there was this image that as soon as I saw it, I just sort of fell in love, and I was just like blown away by this design. And it was of like I think he called it a sky fighter, and it's a spaceship design that was actually greenlit by George. So he gave it the stamp, and it was given the green light to use in canon.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh man, I need to model this. So I was just green with 3D modeling. Mayo was my 3D modeling program of choice, and I just set about wanting to model this. And so I, as a fresh-faced, naive 20-something, I started modeling, and I post my progress on Twitter. And I didn't check to see if Warren had a Twitter, but I put his name in it. And he must have searched for his name, or got a notification or a Google.
Yeah, you set up Google alerts for this sort of stuff.
Google alerts.
It's not a what you call like an egotistical thing whatsoever. It's just to check
that people aren't stealing your stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, happens all the time. So like I've got them set up for mine, and I get pinged by it like once or twice a week, and stuff just seeps out everywhere. So yeah, not.
I've got politicians and people that work in charities and stuff. That's my name. I guess that's the kind of name.
I mean, Chris Jarvis is quite a. It's a very British name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
I think there's one Australian. But
that's painfully British. Like I've got the first name of Vincent at least, so I don't like. I'm a little less common. Or Vin is even even less common than
Even
Vincent.
less common.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of lucky in that respect, but I can imagine you would get pinged a lot.
I work with three. I work with three Chris's, and there's actually someone else that I work with, another Jarvis. So yeah, it's pretty common.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, back to the story. So I tweeted my progress of this Star Wars Skyfighter, and I mentioned that it was Warren Fu's design. And then he just out of the blue like contacted me, was like, "Hey, this looks cool. Let me know if you need any like help with it or anything, you know." And I was just, to me, as like a young kid that loves Star Wars, still do, and to get this message back just from tweeting, like my progress it just made my day. It just was so amazing. I was just like on cloud 9, and like every time I think about it, it's like my happy place. I just go back to that moment where you get that message and you read it and you're just like validated by someone that you just admire. It's just amazing. So from that, he helped me so much in my degree. So this is the whole point of the story. So just to any people that might be in artistic degrees or studying or in pursuit of something artistic, the moral of this story, before I tell the rest of it, is like, make sure you tweet artists, people that you admire and people you respect. Tweet them. Use Twitter and tweet them. If you're doing work that's inspired by them, or if you're using work that's by them, totally tweet the heck out of them, because some good stuff can happen. And that happened to me. So I'd be sending him my work in progress, my whip. I'd be like, this is what I've done, because I was just using this one image at first. He then had like net images, so he had like a top-down version, and he sent me that so I could use that for reference, which was invaluable. And like a side profile, and what they call Greeble, which is like the things they use to get scale, which is like the what they call boilerplate. So Star Wars is all about boilerplate. So everything's a work in progress, and everything's used, and everything's a bit broken, and everything's a bit messy. Although this is from the prequels, when everything was a bit more flashy, so it was a bit more 50s styling, so a bit more chrome, a bit more stylized.
It's before the collapse of the Empire.
Before the collapse of the Empire. Yeah. So in this Star Wars Skyfighter, on the back where the droid is, there's Greeble, and so that's what he called it. And he showed me some reference images and showed me some designs, and so he did some, either pulled up images that he already had, or did some extra work for me to help me in my degree. This helped my degree no end, because I had so much drive and ambition to do a good job on this project. So this is a project that I wanted to do for myself, which helped with my degree. Because our degree was very good at being free and being able to choose our own sort of personal projects.
Yeah, kind of to a fault almost. Like it was kind of like the blue sky, you can do whatever you want sort of thing. And that was like, wow, that's amazing. And then you actually sit down and look at the blank page, and you kind of like, crap,
what do I do? What
the hell am I going to do with this? So yeah.
So this was perfect, because what was happening is Warren was acting as he was acting as an art director, and he was directing my 3D work from a 2D artist's perspective. So he had the idea, and he knew exactly what this should look like, and I was just doing my impression of what I think it would look like in 3D space. And obviously we don't have the different camera lenses and perspective and warping and all that sort of stuff. It all comes into play when you're doing 3D modeling. So he would like send me notes, and he would like put red lines over everything.
Give you art
direction.
direction.
Shorter. That needs to be longer. And it was perfect. It was just like exactly what I think it's like in industry. It never actually properly got into the industry anyway, but it was still the brilliant experience.
It's a great learning curve, and I mean, it's. I don't want to hijack like the conversation whatsoever, but like I've definitely been on the other side of that as well. Like I've been like the person that's been contacted by randos online, like, hey, I'm making a 3D model version of your thing, like, can you give me feedback and stuff? And I've absolutely gone through that process of a couple of people. Actually, probably show you one of them.
Yes.
Which was I've got like a few instances from this one concept anyway, which is the Last of Us chair, which I did, which was like I wanted to do like a main menu with The Last of Us Part 2. Like this was years ago though. It was like 2 years before the game even came out. It
was leaked, wasn't it, on YouTube as well, as the menu for The Last of Us 2.
And one of the most prevalent of the people that sort of contacted me about this one in particular was a guy called Martin Hoff. He contacted me and he was like, I want to make a 3D version of the chair and I want to like do it properly, sort of thing. And then there was another person not too long ago, which I'll get into as well in a minute. But he wanted to build it out in 3D as close as he could, and he got it like pretty much 1-to-1 by the end. But like as he was sending me these things, and he animated it as well, it's like all the leaves and stuff were fluttering on the side of the chair.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
That's cool.
It looked really cool. And then he did like different sort of lighting and stuff for like a night and day version, like the dust particles moving and stuff. And us just going back and forth and actually him figuring out. Like, it was a really good practice for me, and it was probably what he was doing at the time as well with you, was he was probably practicing being an art director almost, you know,
Yeah.
and like that stuff is important as well for them as it is for you, because like if you're just a junior, like trying to break into this sort of stuff, and it's just, you're trying to get used to getting feedback with like you get the images back with the red lines on them, like little arrows pointing, like, yo, no, remove this, all the blue circles, like this is great, like do more of this.
Yeah.
Like that stuff's invaluable. Like it's really important. That's why the thing that people forget more than anything is that when you contact these people online or you reach out to them, 9 times out of 10, they're generally nice people. Like they're not like this. People have this weird sort of skewed image of the games industry and the movie industry of like everyone's like this gated community, right? And it's really not. Like if you ask questions, and that's the main thing which I always hammer home about when students sort of like message me. Ask questions. Always ask questions. Don't ever just be like, I'm a fan of your work, and they're just gonna be like, yeah, cool, thanks. Like, I mean, we see that a lot, and
they've got information that you can tap, and they're a resource that you can use, as well as the people at university. Like people in the industry can be tapped because everyone was at your point. Everyone was studying, or everyone was aspiring to be where they are. So everyone in the industry at least can have 2 cents for Joe Blogs that's trying to get there, I think. But yeah, coming back to the story, so that was awesome, and it helped me with my degree, and I got a really good grade. And I did I never actually got around to UVing it or texturing it. I just ran out of time because it's coming up to the end of 3rd year.
Sure, yeah.
So just ran out of time, and I was doing a group project. So I did a video game level in Unreal Engine 3. So that was kind of cool. Then like 6 months go by, I like graduate, and I'm working. I'm working as like a digital artist for the Sunday Times. Awesome job, by the way. Just so much. I learned so much on that job. It's crazy. Yeah. And a friend of my brother's was working for Coral, and he invited me along to the premiere of the launch of Coral Draw, which is kind of like Adobe Illustrator, but no one's ever heard of it.
No,
and it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And so I went along as a vlogger. So I had a badge that said I was a vlogger, which is interesting. Yeah. Which I'm not, but I'm a podcaster now, so that's cool. So it was kind of there.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Preemptively.
And I got talking to some people, and there was like some directors of Imagine FX magazine. So I was in a room with the people that was in charge of putting together the magazine that I picked up, where I saw the image of the Skyfighter that I started to model, and then Warren contacted me to mention it, and that just blew me away. That kind of came full circle. That I could thank the people that put that together and thought that would be a good idea. Like, oh, let's do. They were saying like, yeah, we haven't done something Star Wars in a while. Why don't we do a whole edition of Star Wars? And that just came about that way. And yeah, I got to show them I had my iPad with me, which had my portfolio on. And so I could show them the work that I did off the back of that image and that article as well. So that was kind of cool for them, that they could see that what they're doing has an impact on what students are making and what they're deciding to do as well. And that it all feeds into each other, and that these people meet each other and talk about it, and they have that experience. Yeah. It was just crazy. It was like
the industry is tiny.
Crazy day out.
The industry is really, really small. Like, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but like the games industry in particular is probably only like It's less than 100,000 people worldwide, which is a tiny fraction of the amount of what like is in normal production. Like even in things like Lord of the Rings, right? There's only like 1,000 people working on that movie.
Yeah.
At peak, you know, like so, and you think, wow, 1,000 people, that's a lot of people. But then you think, okay, that's 1,000 people in all of New Zealand, and many of them were probably Americans. It's like, okay, that's actually a really small fraction. If you sort of expand that out to other films that don't have special effects, that don't need design work, like it gets even smaller and smaller and smaller. So what that ultimately results in is that everyone is in the same loops. Like you can, what's like the game of like Kevin Bacon or whatever it is, like where you can get to Kevin Bacon within like seven people that you know.
7 people removed from Kevin Bacon.
That was the one. Like in the games industry, you can probably cut that down to 3, easy.
Yeah.
Like and film is probably pretty similar as well. So and what that results in is like people are really good at talking to each other and being communicative. And when you contact these people like you did, like 9 times out of 10, they're willing to help, like, especially if you ask questions and you're just being polite and nice and like, hey, I'm really like, I want to learn. This is the thing that I want to do. Can you please just like give me a hint of like how to get to it? Like obviously don't be too vague. Like how do I break into the games industry? Peace, sort of thing. Like get out of here, man. Like that's.
We've answered that on a video. If you can go back to one of the clips, I think we've mentioned that.
And when it, like there's certain questions which I now just like I'm kind of like you have to get blasé about after a while because you're just like I cannot answer this question anymore. And it's how do I break into industry and what brushes do you use in Photoshop? Like those 2 questions, I just want to pick them up and throw them out like of the window. I'm just like, go away. Like it's not.
You should do a YouTube video on your YouTube channel. These are the brushes I do for Photoshop.
Yeah,
and then
copy,
just
paste,
them to
send.
Copy, paste the link. Yeah.
And people do that, and that's probably why like the most popular sort of like artist videos are them stupid like questions of not stupid questions, obviously
they're not stupid, man.
They're not
stupid.
Just
repetitive.
They're just repetitive.
It's just information that a lot of people want to learn and it hasn't got through to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's too vague of a question. That's the problem. It's like, how do I break into the industry? Is like
if you ask every artist that question, they'll all give you a different answer for all different reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
what you need to teach. Yeah.
It's the same question as like, how do you cook food?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay.
A better question would be, how do I go about finding my Photoshop brushes?
Yes, exactly. Like, and the answer to that question, by the way, is like, it depends, quote unquote. Like, that's it. It depends, full stop. Great. And it's kind of like you just need to find your own or make your own or don't use them at all. Like, I know a bunch of concept artists that only use the round brush that comes default with Photoshop because every time they move gigs or move jobs, they don't have to walk around.
Don't have any brushes.
Right. They don't have to like reinstall because like some companies might only have Photoshop like CS and then other ones might have CC or like they have different versions of Photoshop that don't use all the same brushes and also so like to them it's just easier to just like, okay, I'll just stick with the defaults and screw it. Like it'll always be there for what I need. Don't have to worry about installing anything. I can just work straight away, no problems. That's the answer, is like everyone has different brushes and then you get to a certain point in concept art where it's like what brush you use really doesn't matter anymore whatsoever. But like students get it into their head like really early that, hey, I need a certain brush to be good. And that's like, that is not the reality of it.
Where's
whatsoever.
My cloud brush?
Yeah. And that's the wider question of like, whenever I get asked that, I'm just like, I automatically know that they're quite green and they don't really understand like how the industry works and all that sort of stuff. Like it tells me a lot of information about the person that's asking that question, because like you wouldn't ask that question if you were in industry, because it's just kind of like, yeah, it really doesn't matter what you use. Like it's kind of use whatever you want. It's kind of like what it's like when people ask you constantly as a 3D artist, like, hey, what software do you use? It's like whatever works, whatever the studio has. Like they might not have licenses for Maya. They might only have licenses for 3ds Max, or they might just use Blender full time. So it's kind of like you have to learn them all at this point. So yeah, it's bizarre, but it's the way of the industry. I can't even remember why I got into this, but yeah. Ask the right questions.
The story is, ask the right questions, and pester people in the industry, be nice, and you'll find that a lot of them are good. And it will help your work. Like, that experience helped my work no end. Like, I learned so much on that project. It was a project that I wanted to do. It was a project that meant something to me. It wasn't just like, what do I do for uni? I don't know. I guess I'll do a building.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's real.
It didn't.
And getting that feedback of like the red pen over like your ideas and just been like cut this, change that, because you don't really get too much of that.
Tutors can't do that.
They can't, like, because there's too many people for one, and secondly, it's just kind of like they might not be art directors in that.
They can't. They can only guide you. They
capacity.
can't direct you. They can't say you have to do this and you have to do that, because the whole point of uni is that it's self-learning and you have to discover it and put the work in yourself. If the tutors started saying do this, do that, change this, change that,
Yeah,
it's accurate to what we're the real student, the real studio life is, but it's not really what a tutor should do.
yeah.
But it's like what you said. They should find, the students should be finding out the answers themselves. That's how they learn.
Yeah, I think the main problem which people have, especially students anyway, is because they are terrified of that first instance of getting proper feedback. Like they're actually really frightened of that almost. And
Okay. I don't remember that. I remember just like giggling like a little girl, like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But maybe it's because
for someone like Warren Theory, that absolutely, like the
Yeah.
guy's a superstar, right? So
He drew over my picture.
right, and that in particular is something that is terrifying to some people, because like they're terrified of people getting back to them and be like, yeah, you should really quit. You're not that good. That's what they're ultimately scared of. That would never happen, for one. Secondly, you've got to get over that hump at some point or another, and the sooner you do, from a professional like Warren Field or someone else like in the industry, like the second that you get that first round of feedback, it's usually like, even if your concept is absolutely awful or your 3D object or whatever you're working on is god awful, the people replying to you will never straight out say that. They'll say, yeah, it looks good, but you can do this to like really improve it, and they'll give you a list or they'll draw over it or whatever, and then that is the part that you really need to focus on. It's like, okay,
that
now
actually reminds me of another anecdote where I sent Tim Searle, and he worked on the Beano for years. He came to do a talk.
Right,
he's actually from my hometown, and I remember like another small world. So I had this weird moment where I was sitting in uni in the lecture hall, and he was saying, I was from Stony Stratford. And I was like, I'm from Stony Stratford. And like set up this animation studio. It's like, there's an animation studio in Stony Stratford? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And he worked with Steve Coogan on something with animals. I'm Not an Animal.
Okay.
It's like a 2D animation program years and years ago, like early noughties and and so I got talking to him, and I sent him like an animation, a 3D animation that I did of like do you remember our gods project where we had to make gods?
Vaguely.
So we had to make gods. I think it was in 3D. I'm not sure if it was in 2D. It might have been 2D or 3D, but we had to make gods. And it was part of a competition as well. And I made like this god of technology, and it was all made of cogs and stuff. And I sent him this walk cycle. And it was so imagine like a second or third year student like doing their first ever walk cycle. Like they've made a character, they've rigged it themselves.
Yeah, I can imagine how
and
terrible.
And they made their first walk cycle.
Yeah,
it's terrible. And I sent him this like as someone who is in charge of as a director, and he's like in charge of people. I was like, what do you think? And he was so nice, because he said it looks great. It looks great if he's walking in like outer space or something like that, or if he's like walking on the outside of a spaceship. Like, he didn't say this is dog shit, which it was. He didn't say this is terrible, stop trying to animate, do something else.
Yeah.
Don't
quit your day job.
It looks like this. Try adding a bit more up and down movement. Like when you're walking with gravity, there's a lot of up and down movement. The hip bone goes in a circle if you're looking at it in profile. So look at all those. And he gave me so many cool little hints and tips. But he didn't say what I did was terrible, which was just... I mean, thinking back, now I know it was terrible. At the time, I was like, oh my God, I did an animation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about stoking that fire of excitement and possibility, rather than stifling it or putting it out, for sure. So yeah, encourage the 20-somethings.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like even in industry, like people sort of pussyfoot their way around certain like feedbacks and stuff, because like sometimes you just need to be like out front with it and just be like, yeah, no, this isn't exactly what I'm looking for, sort of thing. Because like when you're a student, it's very much you're focused on like the quality of the art itself and how it looks and how good it looks. But like when you shift into industry itself, when you're working on films or games or TV or whatever, like when you're working in production anyway, it changes because you're no longer working on the quality of like how the thing actually looks. You're working on a design. It needs to be used by someone, like, and it needs to be what the director wants, because you can make someone look absolutely amazing and it looks great, but to the art director or whatever, it's like, yeah, but it looks great, but it's not what I want. Like I wanted X, Y, and Z, and that transition to that is like one of the hardest things for students to get around, and like that helps a lot when you talk to industry people more than anything, because you're constantly getting feedback when you first start out about how to improve like how good something looks, but then when you start switching over to the design aspect, that's when you really need to get like feedback from an actual person in industry and just be like, okay, what should I do with this? Like, what would your vision be for this? And like, how can I change this to actually work within the context of whatever project I'm working on? And it's always really, really cool to do that sort of stuff. Like I'm doing a mentorship right now with a student from Norwich, and she's working on sort of like a game idea, and just having someone that not, because like without like having someone to have that direct input, she's just basically going in circles about what looks good, but she's not really thinking about the design of it, sort of thing. So if someone else has got like an opinion about what the design should be, then that just automatically helps, because then they can give very, very like specific detailed feedback about, okay, change this and do that and do this because we need it in game, quote unquote. Like if it's not real.
Reason why it's all because of reasons, rather than what are we going to make today? Like, oh, I've got a blank canvas here, what am I going to do? Something that works well, something that's going to look good in my portfolio. You're coming at it from a director's like, we need this to work rather than look good, so it needs to work in this context.
Yeah, and it's vital. I think because like people, I don't know, people always like get confused about this sort of stuff, and they never know when to make that transition, but you should try and make it as soon as possible, like just having problems to solve, because ultimately if you're an artist in production on anything, like be it film, music, movies, whatever, like if you're an artist and you're working through stuff, basically what your job is to do is to solve problems. Like you're trying to help other people out. You're not really there to be the end product for the most part. Like you kind of are sometimes. So if you're a 3D artist, then like, yeah, your work directly makes it into products. But like as a concept artist anyway, I never ever, like my stuff is actually never directly in games ever, which is kind of nuts if you think about it. Like my whole career is based around something that hardly anyone ever sees, apart from like the people that see on ArtStation or people within production, but it affects a lot. And when you look at it from that perspective, you realize like, okay, I'm literally just there to be used as a tool to help other people out. And students sort of miss that. Like all they see is like the art books and the pretty stuff and the like, oh, like they know all the famous like concept artists and stuff, but they don't realize that that's only like a very small slither of the industry.
That's the cream of the crop that have picked like book quality images to put in a book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the irony is, like, most of them people that have them book quality images, as you put it, majority of the games that they've worked on don't actually look like that. Like they like have gone through so much iteration and changed so much. Like that extremely nice polished image that they did in the very beginning, while was a good guide to get them to the end product, like it no longer looks like that anymore, like whatsoever. Yeah. So it's this kind of weird juxtaposition you're constantly playing around with, and so it's always fascinating in that respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, always get feedback, because like as soon as you make that transition, that jump, like you did, you reached out to the right people and you asked the right questions, and they give you that feedback. Like you automatically, without even realizing it, you automatically switch to that, and you're no longer thinking about how good something looks. You're trying to solve a problem,
trying to get it accurate, and how do I get this model? I was trying to get it done, so I just had something to show for my thing, and I was just trying to do the direction. So I was trying to just it was doing that process. So.
And it's very natural, and like that's the weird thing is about all of that is that when you switch to that mode of problem solving, it's actually way more fun. than just like the normal bog standard, like I'm just making something that looks cool. Like that's good in the beginning, but after a while, like that's kind of like you get used to it. It becomes a job. But the problem solving aspect to this industry is the thing that just never ends. Like that's the thing that is constantly happening. So that's the part that makes it exciting more than anything else. So the sooner people like realize that and switch to it by contacting people, by asking them for feedback, it's great. Like it's invaluable, I think.
Yeah, I think that should be taught at unis. Like, you know, reach out to people and try to get them to help you out with this. I mean,
they should.
Sounds like a cop out from a tutor, though, doesn't it?
No, I mean,
people to help you.
No, yeah, I mean that's the thing though. They should absolutely do a class on how to reach out to industry professionals. You know, because that's a vital part of breaking
to
it.
Ask, and there's questions which you're just trying to avoid. Yeah, like the silly ones.
Yeah. Oh well, they'll figure it out. Or they won't, and they'll never break in. It's the way of the world.
Well, even if you don't break in, because I haven't really broken in. Well, I kind of have. It was still invaluable, and I still use those lessons, and it's still, it's still what I tell at parties whenever I do go to parties.
Yeah, you just need to get used to taking feedback as well. Like that's something that people struggle with the most. So like the quicker you start asking people, because sometimes you get harsh feedback. Like I remember when I applied to ILM a few years ago, and the art director replied back, and he was just like, "Yeah, no, your lighting's terrible on your concepts." And I was like, all right, cool, thanks. I took that and I grew. I mean, kind of a dickish thing for him to say, I agree, but at the end of the day, like after you get over the whole God, that guy was horrible, like you start thinking about it, and then I start looking through all my concepts, like maybe I do need to improve my lighting, and then that seeps into like my next concept that I do. So it was helpful either way. But the sooner you get like them worst case scenarios happen to you, you know, the quicker you'll get over them, and the quicker you'll be able to build and grow from it. So that's ultimately, it was still helpful, even if it was like done in a mean-spirited way. So don't be afraid of that. Like it's still vital. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. That's kind of sucky. I've had quite good luck then, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, you got lucky with ILM, but that's ILM of 2020, like 2019 or whatever when I applied to them, versus ILM 20 years ago. 10 years ago, sorry. So like it's a different. Yeah, it's a different mindset. Different depends who you talk to and stuff. So every art
channels, you know.
Every single art director is different. Every single one of them. Like every art director I've ever worked with is a completely different person, different taste, different mentalities, different different approaches, values. Everything is different because they're individuals, right? Like there's no systemic way to do this. It's just about them having a vision, thinking something looks cool, and they're wanting to tell you yes or no. Like some art directors think I'm awesome, and then other art directors think I'm garbage. Like it's just that is the way of the world. Even within our own studio sort of thing, it's just everyone is different, and everyone has different like expectations and styles and vision. So it's just people need to get used to that as soon as possible, and by contacting industry people.
Don't mean that's disheartened. Just means you just haven't found the right person to say yes.
Exactly.
I guess. Yeah.
And the best way you can do that is just by contacting them. Blasting them out, asking them questions. Yeah. Just don't ask them like what brushes they use and how do I break an industry.
How do I get into the industry? Then you'll be fine.
Right. Because they'll just say I use default brushes and you should just keep pushing. Good luck.
Keep submitting your portfolio to companies. Right. Yeah.
Get good, bro. I don't know. Get good. Yeah. All right, we should wrap this thing up anyway. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you tuning in. You should like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified when we do go live, which is normally every Sunday, but we won't be next week because there is something called Christmas happening and New Year's, and we need a break from you crazy people. But, you know, we've still got like 35 episodes before this for you to go and check out. So, knock yourself out.
So if you're sitting there, Father Christmas and bought you some nice goodies, then check out, sitting there on your new iPad or whatever, then check out all our back catalogue because you probably haven't seen them.
Right.
And there's some good ones.
Most people haven't.
Vin can teach you how to get into the games industry in some of the episodes. I can't remember which one, so you just have to watch all of them until you find them.
That's right. And you should start from the last one backwards because it's definitely like near the beginning, but I'm not going to tell you that.
Yes,
like which
it's
one.
Near the first few. It's on the first few. Yeah.
Or maybe it was the last episode. I'm not sure. Just like watch the last one and work your way back. You'll find it eventually.
After like 30. Wow, how many hours of content have we got now? It's like 33rd video, 35th?
No, we're on 36 now.
So we've got like 40, 50 hours of content. Okay.
Easy. Yep.
Congratulations to you.
Indeed.
New subscriber.
Yep. Indeed. But anyway, yeah. Chris, where can people find you on?
So they can find me on Twitter, which is at Acrylic Pixel. And that's, where this story came from that I told. So, add me on Twitter, Acrylic Pixel. And I've also got a YouTube channel, which I don't really do much on more, but I need to. Again, which is Acrylic Pixel. But Vin, where can we find your art stuff and your indie game stuff?
Cool. Yeah, you can find my artwork at ArtStation. I am Vin Hill Art on there. So if you Google me, I'll be... I show up on Google everywhere. Like, I'm not in an egotistical way. I've just sort of... I've reinforced it. Yeah, I've got a really unique name, thankfully. And then also, like, I've just posted absolutely everywhere over the past 10 years. So, like, I'm in the algorithm, thankfully. But yeah, I'm also on Twitter at Hillfort Games, which is all my indie stuff, as you just mentioned. I am going to be spending the next few weeks, like over the holidays, I'm going to be working on my game like a lot. So I've got a lot to sort of get through. I really, really want to finish off a playable demo on the other end of this. So hopefully by our next Indie Dev solo sort of roundtable that we do with you, Chris, and Sam Webster, where I should have something playable, I hope. So I'll be... That's the goal. We'll see. But yeah, I'm going to be posting stuff on Twitter about my indie game if you're into that stuff. But if not, then just subscribe to this and listen to us. We're also on Spotify, on all your favorite podcast services. We're floating around because we're on Anchor. So we're absolutely everywhere. And until next time, which should be in the new year.
2022.
Indeed. So yeah, everyone have a
great Christmas.
Have
everyone.
A good Christmas, a good New Year, and play some video games because there's a lot coming, and you need to clear out your backlog before.
Get your back catalogue done now. Yeah,
you really should, because next year is going to be insane. So let's all collectively get together and play some video games so we can do this properly. Because we've got it right.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah. Until next time, then.
Until next time, everyone. See you later.
Happy Christmas.
Bye.